Breaking tonight, the election just 82 days away, and the Republican nominee is shaking up his campaign at the very top. Donald Trump declaring he will do whatever it takes to win the White House. Welcome, everyone, to the Kelly File. I am Trish Regan, in for Megyn Kelly tonight. 3 campaign managers in 3 months. Hey, maybe third time's the charm. Donald Trump elevating his top poll star, Kellyanne Conway, who was seen here just last night on the Kelly File, to the role of campaign manager, and he added Breitbart.com executive chairman Steve Bannon, who assumes the created role of Trump campaign CEO. Paul Manafort will keep his role as campaign chairman. Why did he do this now? And how worried should Hillary Clinton be? We have a powerful lineup for you tonight. Dana Perino knows all about presidential messaging. She joins us on why the campaign rolled out such change just as positive reviews and very strong commentary were rolling in for Trump's speech last night. Ben Shapiro, formerly of Breitbart, knows Trump's new campaign CEO pretty well. He doesn't like him all so much. But Charles Hurt is a Trump supporter, and he says Bannon may just do the trick. They join us in just a couple moments to debate today's moves. But first, let's go to campaign Carl Cameron, chief political correspondent, with the very latest from inside the Trump campaign. Carl.
Hi, Trish. For years, when presidential campaigns hit rough patches, they've said it's time for a reset. And they'll shuffle the deck chairs, move some people around, hire new people. In this particular case, the Trump campaign refers to it as an expansion, not a shakeup. But the fact of the matter is, the man who'd been running the campaign has now been supplanted by Steve Bannon, a firebrand conservative, the type of Republican who feasts on anti-establishment rhetoric and attacking the institutions of the American body politic. Bannon brings to the Trump team the type of rhetoric, the type of approach that Donald Trump himself likes to demonstrate on the campaign trail. Bannon is now the top guy, and Kelly Conway, she's been elevated to campaign manager. Now, what she brings to the table is not only a very astute polling capacity, but she's quite expert in finding out what the themes of various different constituencies are. And one of the things that she thinks that she can help Donald Trump with is appealing to women more. So between the two of them, Bannon and Conway, Paul Manafort, the campaign chairman, has been at the very least layered. He remains in the job, but even though he was trying, along with a lot of other folks in the Trump campaign, to try to make the candidate adhere to a more message-oriented discipline instead of the off-the-cuff bombastic fireworks that he's now famous for, it clearly hasn't worked to date, and now with these 2 new additions, it would seem as though Trump has some allies in campaigning his way. Having said that, there's no lack of understanding of the challenge in the Trump campaign. They read the polls. They get it. They know that in most of the key battleground states, 11 or so, and there are polls just this week that illustrate this, in a number of cases, Hillary Clinton has jumped out to a lead that it has at times been in double digits. This is obviously very bad news under 12 weeks for Donald Trump, so now comes the change. He's also been campaigning in states, frankly, that are red states where normally at this point in the campaign a Republican nominee wouldn't be going, hoping that they're in the bank, and yet we see in many places where Hillary Clinton has canceled her advertising in swing states where she thinks she's comfortable and has now begun venturing into places like Utah and Nevada and Arizona, thinking that those traditionally red states can be moved into the blue category. So the Trump campaign starts anew, expanded as they are with 2 more people who happen to be now senior to their former campaign chairman. And as far as the Trump campaign is concerned, their target is always Hillary Clinton, and it's not about the internal mechanisms and mechanics of how this works, Trish.
All right, thank you so much, Carl. Well, the news of the shakeup, or shall we say expansion, at the top of his campaign came just hours after Mr. Trump delivered what was billed as a groundbreaking speech in which he made a direct appeal to African-American voters. Watch him here.
Law and order must be restored. It must be restored for the sake of all, but most especially for the sake of those living in the affected communities. The main victims of these riots are law-abiding African-American citizens living in these neighborhoods. The Democratic Party has failed and betrayed the African-American community. Democratic crime policies, education policies, and economic policies have produced only more crime, more broken homes, and more poverty. I want to offer Americans a new and much better future.
Dana Perino is co-host of The Five and served as White House press secretary under President George W. Bush. She joins us now. Dana, good to see you.
Thank you.
You know, the speech was well received by a lot of different people. And he's had, you could say, a pretty good run since Monday. So all of this happening today, it seems to be in some ways taking away the opportunity he had to kind of ride those good headlines. Why do it right now?
I don't know. Because I agree that the last night's speech, by some accounts, I think it was Rudy Giuliani called it the best speech by a Republican ever, which I think Abe Lincoln might take issue with. But it was, yes, so they were trying to give him really good reviews for this. The news about the campaign change had held in secret since last Sunday. So to me, I'm like, why wouldn't you then just hold it for Friday night? Because the media will always cover a process story over a substantive story,
you know,
every time.
You're absolutely right. And it's one of my biggest criticisms of the media, this tendency. And here we are talking about it. But nonetheless, we're going to get to all the policy. We are going to get to the policy. But this is the latest headline. And so instead of talking about the ways to improve the socioeconomic communities throughout Black America right now, as he was just talking about there last night, here we are talking about the changes in his campaign. And it seems to detract from the important stuff he needs to get to. But nonetheless, maybe he just had to get it done right now.
Well, maybe the news was going to break and they wanted to break it themselves, or maybe, you know, because of the news, additional news about Paul Manafort's possible connections in Russia and whether or not he didn't fully disclose payments back to the United States, if there was some impropriety. I mean, that could be a little bit at the heart of this, that Donald Trump wanted to get in front of that and say, I understand that there's a problem there and I'm going to fix it by bringing in Bannon. And then with Kellyanne Conway, an interesting elevation to campaign manager. It's a new role for her. What I think is good for Trump is that she used to work for Ted Cruz. So when she did opposition research, she knows exactly what Trump's weaknesses are, and so she can probably help strengthen them. I think that's a good thing. And I think part of that speech last night was not just to the African American community, because he's got a 9% approval rating with African Americans. He is not going to fix that dramatically in the next 82 days. But women listening to him last night, if they were on the fence about him, maybe they would believe that the law and order message that he's giving and that change needs to happen in those communities would be helpful. And that might be where Kellyanne Conway can be really effective.
And one would have to think that Kellyanne was already weighing in
definitely.
before that speech on Monday night and of course, the one last night.
Yep.
Anyway, it's fascinating to watch, and we want to get back to some of this policy stuff. But Dana Perino, thank you so much. You know, the critics are out there. They're everywhere. They're on the left. They're on the right. And they're all taking issue tonight with Trump campaign's Breitbart connection. As we mentioned, Trump named Steve Bannon, the executive chairman of Breitbart News, as his new campaign CEO. Mr. Bannon is best known for his controversial right-leaning website and has been described as the most dangerous man in politics. I don't know about that, but that's what they say. Ben Shapiro is a former Breitbart editor-at-large and now the editor-in-chief of thedailywire.com. And Charles Hurt is a political columnist at The Washington Times. Welcome to you both. You know, the most dangerous man in politics. Wow. I mean, given that politics is as dangerous as it is these days, maybe that's not so bad to have on your side, especially when you're going up against the likes of the Clintons. But Ben, you don't think Bannon's going to help him. I know that you know Mr. Bannon quite well. Why do you say that?
Well, I'm not saying that Bannon won't help him. I think that Bannon could help him. He could help keep him on track a little bit. But I think that Steve Bannon has a record of telling Donald Trump to double down. Breitbart News has created this alternative reality where Donald Trump is always winning and his rally size matters more than his poll numbers. And you know, Bannon has a history of speaking with various kind of high-level Republican politicians and Svengaling them a little bit, from Michelle Bachmann to Sarah Palin, and watching as their careers spiral the drain. I think Steve is a very smart guy. I think Steve is a very vicious guy. And I think that Steve has his own interests here. And his own interests don't necessarily matter very much when it comes to Trump winning.
I would think, I mean, now that he's joined the campaign and has taken on the role effectively of CEO of the whole Trump campaign, his interests should be aligned with Donald Trump's, in that he needs to win this thing as much as Trump needs to win this thing. I don't know why you take that on if you don't want to win. You want to go down as a loser? Why take that on? You could have stayed happily at Breitbart and just, you know, enjoyed the paycheck.
So Steve is a very smart guy, and that means that he doesn't put himself in win-lose scenarios. He puts himself in win-win scenarios. Right now, if Trump wins, obviously Steve is a power player at the White House, and I have to prepare for my IRS audit. If Trump loses, then presumably Steve moves on with Trump as an ally, and they prepare their stabs in the back myth, and they work together beyond that, because Breitbart and Trump have been working hand in glove together for months now. I mean, when I left in March, I said this was Trump Pravda, and that Bannon had basically turned Breitbart into that. Again, that doesn't mean that Trump is going to be hurt by bringing Bannon on, but there is a shark jump moment to all of this, and it's not just a shark jump. It sort of feels like Fonzie put on an Evel Knievel rocket pack and is jumping 1,000 left sharks from Katy Perry.
I don't know about that. I think, it's not over till the fat lady sings, as they say, and it's still early. We're not even at Labor Day.
I agree.
And Charles, let me ask you, what is it that Mr. Bannon can bring to the table? Because I think that while, running the website is one thing, actually running a campaign is something rather different. And let's face it, the Donald Trump that we have seen in the last couple of days has been a more modified version of himself.
Sure. Well, to be sure, I don't think that picking Steve Bannon to run his campaign is picking a political hack. Steve Bannon does not have experience running a presidential campaign, to be sure. But what I think that that decision does signal is that Donald Trump is doubling down on the message that Donald Trump has given from the beginning, and it's a message that's been very good for him, combating illegal immigration, domestic economy, again, domestic economy, not globalism, but the domestic economy, and fighting terrorism. And those things, there are very few people, especially on the right, who saw those three messages, those three issues as being as vital as they've proven it to be. One of them is, of course, Donald Trump, but another one has been Breitbart and Steve Bannon. And then the fourth overarching thing that I think is so vitally important and has done so much good for Donald Trump in this campaign has been his willingness to go up and shatter the political correctness that has strangulated politics in this country. And, definitely the Democratic Party, and I know that Ben agrees with me on that, and I think he probably agrees with me on this, too. Yeah. It's also strangulated the Republican Party.
Yeah, no, both sides, for sure.
You can't take away from Steve Bannon that he has been just as unafraid and unflinching to go after that kind of political correctness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a good thing.
Well, for sure. It is definitely refreshing to see that in politics these days, and I think that is so much of what people have responded to. Thank you so much. It's good to see both you guys tonight. First today for Donald Trump as he receives his first classified intelligence briefing from Washington officials. CIA-trained intel op Tony Shaffer, who spoke to one of the men in that briefing, is going to tell us what type of intelligence Mr. Trump received. And Governor Mike Huckabee is here to respond to the critics who say Trump shouldn't receive that intel. Plus, Congress finally getting its hands on the investigative documents from Hillary Clinton's email probe, only to find huge portions completely redacted due to sensitivity. Wait a second, I didn't think she sent or received any classified information, right? Congressman Jason Chaffetz is here exclusively on what Americans need to know now. We'll see you back here right after this.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material.